Welcome, fellas. Thank you for your viewership on today's video. I thought I would bring up a video that I had a rather strong view about. We all remember the breakdancing dad who was called out in one of his daughter's vlogs for being a deadbeat, and he responded by bringing receipts showing his financial support over the years, as well as his strong will to be present in the lives of his children as much as possible, backing it up with video-supported evidence. After hearing this guy's story and the challenges he faced, I don't think I was the only one who was ticked off. But I would also like to point out a possible misstep. I mean, when he decided to give his ex-wife the majority of all owned assets, I think she got 97% of it or something like that. He should have been a bit more prudent and aimed for a more respectable split on his behalf. Can't take care of anyone else before you could take care of yourself. This would have been able to ease the stress of his future hardships. When it came to the ludicrous financial obligations he would end up shouldering. With that in mind, humor me for a minute as I elaborate a possible second benefit of aggressively pursuing the more even split of assets. Now then, far be it from me to possibly simulate how a woman thinks. They are more emotional than logical after all. So, let's assume the driving emotion was suspicion. His ex-wife was confused that he would be all right with her taking almost all of the assets, leaving him with hardly anything. So, wouldn't she assume he had assets stashed away somewhere so that he wouldn't mind the arrangement which heavily benefited her? As a result of this suspicion, she convinced her lawyer to target his clients for examination, even though there was nothing substantiating such claims. So by just being a nice guy, he put himself in a bad spot. But anyway, everything is hindsight, and it's not going to change anything. But what do you think? Answer in the comments if there would have been any significant change if he pursued this path instead. Either way, this was a disgustingly blatant case of bias in a court of law. This one case highlighted just how much of a risk it is to consider marriage at present. Not only did he have to pay crazy high upkeep for his children and a fully grown woman, but, from the looks of it, was somehow required to do so continuing onwards after they reached adulthood. I don't know if he did it because they were his kids and he loved them, or the courts made him do it, but either way. I applaud this man's resilience in the face of such adversity, and his dedication to his family. However, if I had to say one thing, it would be that he was extremely lucky. A vast amount of men get crushed under accruing interest to late child support payments and think eternal rest is preferable. The good fortune that his new business venture was lucrative enough to get him out of that horrid pitfall he ended up in was a very rare instance. Just one misstep could have made the entire thing crumble. Fortunately, he had a good head on his shoulders and treaded with caution, allowing him to reap the rewards, even though it was not an easy path. If you're not familiar with this story, the reason I said new business venture was because his original business, that he used to support his family, was nuked from orbit by his wife's disgusting greed. As stated earlier, despite having no evidence, she assumed he hid assets and started subpoenaing his clients, chasing them away, and preventing any new business prospects from being formed. As a result, his business was defunct now. Nobody wanted to do business with someone where they may be drawn into long, unnecessary, and pricey court examinations. All of this while she was awarded the majority of the familial assets. Truly a nauseating woman. How the hell did he not see anything indicative of this warped wench's nature before he decided to wife her up? She truly had not even an ounce of gray matter in that thing resting atop her shoulders either. How was he supposed to pay her alimony if she sunk his business? The answer? Not her problem. The courts would make sure she gets it either way, resulting in him getting thrown in jail at the hands of a feminist judge. Some questions, my good viewers. Firstly, how was he supposed to get funds for these payments when every single financial record was in full view of the court showing his dire straits? Secondly, how was he supposed to make money in jail? Thirdly, he clearly stated that while he was still in the jail cell waiting to be called back to the court for further judgment, the bailiff just came and sent him straight to prison without him being formally sentenced in the courtroom. This should be illegal, right? Even worse, the guards knew that this judge was known to be heavily prejudiced against men. Correct me if I'm wrong, but shouldn't judges be impartial and unbiased? This is disgusting. That judge should be arrested and thrown in jail herself for making a mockery of the court of law. Well, ideally anyways. We all know women like this would get a slap on the wrist. Who cares if they ended up stealing years off of a man's life with biased sentencings? Now, after a long time scrapping by, making long trips to another state to see his children, which seems like added harassment from the ex-wife. He set up his new business and began slowly getting his life back together with his new wife who supported him through this ordeal. Good on him for finding someone genuine. I'm not sure I would risk it, but it worked out for him. And now, after all of his toiling and sacrifice, his dunce of a daughter came online and started denigrating her father on social media to get attention. Just look at this trollop. It's as though the lights are on, but nobody's home. I say that because there clearly wasn't any thought given to her father's reputation. It's all about the likes and views for her. Could even tell in some of the old videos the dad showcased to prove his innocence that, from a young age, she was already addicted to social media. The reason the pops needed to make a rebuttal video refuting her claims is because the clients in his new business were starting to ask questions and may rethink their partnership with him. This was after he asked them nicely to take it down before it became more public. Naturally, the dunce and her mother refused. His reputation was in danger. So, he defended himself with undeniable video footage disproving everything his daughter said about him. Hilariously, she doubled down on her disparaging remarks towards her father, only to get roasted severely. Now, the shoe was on the other foot, and the dunce with her mother in tow kept harassing the guy to take down his video. Naturally, there was no need to do anything, they said. Of course, there seemed to be more drama taking place during all of this nonsense his daughter started. The older daughter said she would be siding with her mother and sister against him, and the only blood ally he had was his son, who seemed to understand who was truly at fault. Things escalated, and he exercised his right to cut her out of his will, effectively disowning her. But he should have done the same to the older daughter too. She knew full well who was at fault, but chose to side against him. This story was wild, and I am certain the man would have just wanted to keep things private, but was being dragged into a public and messy affair. This story highlights several problems. Firstly, a corrupt family court system. It's unconscionable for such injustice to run rampant where disputes are meant to be settled fairly, but instead, a veritable racket to extract assets from men, using child support as a premise. But I ask my viewers, if such man has the assets to care for the child and everything is in the child's best interest, would it not be preferable the child remain with the parent who could provide a stable environment? I realize this statement has been pointed out many times by my colleagues in the manosphere, but it does not make it any less true. Secondly, the dangers of social media exposure to young and impressionable minds. This constant need for online validation from strangers, the unnecessary airing of private matters, the damage to reputations from baseless claims for superficial approval. For the life of me, I could never understand the appeal of these actions. You're just making a fool of yourself for other people's amusement. I understand that the dad decided to donate his daughter's financial shares he initially left to her to raise awareness about the dangers of social media exposure at young ages. This is relevant in this age where a lot of new parents just put a screen in front of their children and leave them alone. Children need to bond with their parents, not a screen. Otherwise you end up with this. A fitting poster child for this danger, don't you think? Thirdly, the just horrid stigmatization of fathers. No matter what fathers do, they would still bear the stigma of deadbeat. It's just saddening that the father in most instances would be out sacrificing for his child only to have their children's heads brainwashed by the bitter baby mama or ex-wife. It's all very sad. In any case, before I end the video, I would like to just mention small tips that I recommend which may help regarding physical or mental wellness. The first topic is pre-workouts. When you're going to the gym, what's the first thing most people do? Take a serving of pre-workout, right? I know I do, but please use these supplements responsibly. I have no doubt that more than a few of you have seen people taking far too much of these items for TikTok or Shorts. Do not engage in such dangerous practices. Caffeine is still a powerful stimulant, and in pre-workout doses is significant in one serving. Dry scooping in particular is not a good idea and runs the risk of choking. Use the pre-workout as directed, the glass of water. For the love of God, don't snort it either. Regarding which brand of pre-workout you get, it doesn't matter. Their active ingredients are all the same, mainly caffeine and hydrous. Every company pads their particular pre-workout with some vitamin blend, flavorings and other compounds like beta-alanine and such, which have beneficial effects, but are most of the times underdosed. They just say they have them in the blend for the sake of it, hoping you don't know the clinical dose for it. You would be better off selecting those supplements by themselves. It's pricier, but you get a sufficient dose. You would sometimes find pre-workouts with adequate doses, but their prices are higher as well. If you're budget conscious, you could also just buy over-the-counter caffeine pills. I think they sell them in 150 milligrams and 200 milligrams capsules. You could also accomplish the same pump with a double-shot espresso or something similar. I do not recommend energy drinks, though. They have the necessary caffeine, but they have large amounts of sugar, which is one of the main causes for crashing. The other stimulants like taurine and guarana are just gratuitous at that point. All of these stimulants act on the same chemoreceptor, and all of those receptors are binded to whichever stimulant they have the highest affinity with. Usually caffeine, they'll be completely unavailable for the remaining stimulants. Those stimulants aren't going to remain in your bloodstream long enough for receptors to be free for new stimulant binding. They would have already made their way to your kidneys, where your kidneys have to work extra hard to filter them out of the blood. So yeah, you're just putting a hat on a hat, pointless. But I personally recommend the pre-workout powder, because I'm able to control how much caffeine I need with it. I have a high sensitivity to caffeine, so I normally take a quarter of the dose to get me moving. Not only do I get the pump I need, but my pre-workout lasts 8 to 10 weeks, so it's easier on my wallet. As for the extra vitamin and mineral blends they pad the mixture with, most of the time you don't absorb all of it with the full dose anyway, and pass it in your urine, so it doesn't matter much. I'll end the video here. If you like my content, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and keep rising, kings.